The street was quiet at night. A soft wind moved through the empty lanes, carrying the smell of dust and old leaves. Streetlights flickered, some working, some broken, leaving dark patches on the road. Most people in the town were already asleep, but one man was awake. His name was Daniel. He was not famous, not rich, not powerful. He lived a simple life in a small rented house at the edge of the town. But every night before sleeping, he had a routine. He would take a plastic bag filled with food and step outside. The food was not for himself. It was for the stray dogs that lived near the corner of the street. Daniel never forgot them. He saved scraps from his own meals, sometimes even cooked extra rice or boiled chicken just so the dogs could eat. People in the neighborhood often laughed at him. They said it was useless, a waste of time and money. But Daniel never stopped. He believed every life mattered, even if it was small and voiceless. That night he walked slowly, holding the bag of food. The road was empty, but he knew the dogs would be waiting. They always came running when they heard his footsteps. Their tails wagged, their hungry eyes shining in the dark. For them, Daniel was not just a stranger. He was the only person who cared. When he reached the corner, Daniel placed the food down like he always did. He whistled softly, calling them. But this time no dogs came. The silence was heavy. He waited for a few seconds, confused. Usually by now he would hear paws on the ground, the sound of excited barking. But tonight, nothing. Daniel frowned. Maybe the dogs had gone somewhere else? Maybe someone had scared them away? He looked around. The street was empty. The only sound was the whisper of the wind moving through the trees. He crouched down and opened the bag, spreading some food on the ground. The smell of meat and rice filled the air, but still no sign of the strays. A strange feeling settled in his chest. Something was not right. He turned to leave, thinking maybe he should come back later. But then he heard it, a sound. Very soft, almost like a whimper. Not the bark of a dog, not the meow of a cat. It was different. Human, maybe. Weak and trembling. Daniel froze. His heart began to beat faster. The sound came from the shadows near the alley, behind the broken wall. He squinted his eyes, trying to see. At first, he thought it was just his imagination. But then the sound came again. A small cry. A voice that was almost too faint to hear. Slowly, he took a step closer. His shoes scraped against the ground, the noise echoing in the silence. His body felt tense, every muscle tight. The air seemed colder, heavier. And then he saw them. Two figures sitting close to the wall. Very small, like children. Their bodies were thin, almost fragile. They looked weak, their heads bent down, their arms wrapped around their stomachs as if they were starving. Daniel blinked. His mind raced. What were two little girls doing out here in the dark in the middle of the night? Where were their parents? Why were they hiding? He stepped closer. The streetlight caught their faces for just a moment and Daniel's breath stopped. Their skin was pale, but not like normal human pale. It had a strange glow, soft and silver, as if moonlight lived inside them. Their eyes were wide, reflecting the light in a way that no human eyes should. Daniel felt his chest tighten. These were not ordinary children. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He stood there frozen, staring at the two figures huddled together. One of the girls lifted her head. Her lips trembled. She looked at the food on the ground, then back at Daniel. Her eyes were filled with hunger, but also with fear. Daniel felt his hands grow cold. His mind screamed at him to turn around, to go back home, to lock the door. But his heart whispered something else. These were not stray dogs. They were something far stranger, far more fragile. The silence stretched. The air felt heavy with something he could not explain. And then the girl spoke. Her voice was weak, broken, but clear. Help. The single word echoed in the night, soft but powerful. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. His life had been simple until now. But in that moment, standing in the quiet street with two starving strangers staring at him, he knew everything was about to change. Daniel could not move. The word still rang in his ears. Help. It was just one word, but it carried weight, like it had traveled a long distance before reaching him. He stood frozen, staring at the two figures in the shadows. They were not barking dogs or wandering cats. They were children, or something that only looked like children. The taller one, maybe 12 years old, pushed herself forward. Her arms shook as if even moving was painful. The younger one stayed behind, her face half hidden in the crook of her sister's arm. Both of them looked fragile, like dry branches that could snap with a touch. Daniel's instinct told him to step back, to create distance. But another part of him, the part that had carried food every night for strays, made him take a step forward instead. He crouched, his voice soft. "Are you hungry?" The older girl didn't answer. Her eyes darted toward the food lying on the road. Her lips parted, but she stayed still as if waiting for permission. The younger one whimpered softly, tugging at her sister's sleeve. Daniel pushed the food closer. He tried to smile, though his heart was pounding. "It's okay. You can eat." That broke the silence. The older girl crawled forward and snatched a piece of bread. She didn't chew slowly, didn't even care if crumbs fell. She tore into it as if she hadn't eaten in days. The younger one followed, dragging herself close, grabbing handfuls of rice with trembling fingers. Daniel watched in stunned silence. He had fed starving animals before, but this was different. There was a strange desperation in their movements, like they were not just hungry, but terrified the food would vanish. And then he noticed the details. The glow. It wasn't his imagination. Up close, their skin seemed to shimmer faintly under the streetlight, as though it held a thin layer of liquid silver. It wasn't bright, just enough to make them look unearthly, and their veins, if they were veins, weren't dark like human ones. They glowed faintly blue like tiny rivers of light flowing under the surface. Daniel swallowed hard. His chest tightened. "What are you?" The older girl looked up at him, bread still in her hand. She didn't answer, but her eyes were wide and glassy, glowing faintly like an animal caught in headlights. For just a moment he felt as if he wasn't looking at a child at all, but something older, something that carried memories of stars he had never seen. The younger girl coughed, crumbs scattering. Her sister quickly wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. The protective gesture was human enough to make Daniel's throat ache. Whatever they were still scared children in need. Daniel forced himself to breathe. "It's okay," he said softly, almost to himself. "I won't hurt you." The words seemed to ease them. The older girl gave a slow nod as if she wanted to trust him, but wasn't sure she could. And then, without warning, the night broke again. A light flickered above the rooftops. Not the steady glow of a plane, not the drifting shine of a satellite. This light moved too fast, cutting across the sky in sharp angles. It glowed red for a moment, then vanished, then reappeared in another spot. Daniel's stomach twisted. He had never seen anything like it. The older girl's reaction was immediate. Her head snapped toward the sky, her small body trembling violently. She grabbed her sister and pulled her close, whispering something in a language Daniel couldn't understand. The words were harsh and urgent, filled with fear. Daniel's breath hitched. Whatever that light was, they knew it, and they were afraid of it. The older girl looked back at him, her lips quivering. She shook her head violently, pointing upward with one hand and clutching her sister tighter with the other. Then in broken English, she whispered, "No, hide." Daniel froze. His brain struggled to process it. Hide? From what? From who? The younger girl began to cry softly, burying her glowing face into her sister's shoulder. The older one rocked her gently, her own eyes still locked on Daniel, pleading. The silence of the street now felt dangerous, like it was holding its breath. The flickering light moved again above the rooftops, sweeping across the sky. And then came the sound, a low, distant hum. It wasn't like the noise of a plane, not like a helicopter either. This sound vibrated through the air, deep and unnatural, almost alive. It rolled across the street and pressed against Daniel's chest like invisible weight. The girls whimpered, shrinking back into the wall, their glowing veins pulsing faster, as if reacting to the sound. Daniel took a step back. His legs felt weak. His instincts screamed at him to run back inside his house, close the door, and forget this night ever happened. But the sight of the two girls stopped him. Their faces weren't just afraid, they were begging him to save them. The hum grew louder. The red light flashed again, closer now. Daniel's eyes darted to the sky, and for a second he thought he saw the shape of something vast moving above the clouds. His hands shook. His breath quickened. His mind screamed questions with no answers. Who were these girls? What were they running from? And why did he, an ordinary man, now stand between them and the thing searching the night? The hum deepened, rattling the windows of nearby houses. The girls pressed tighter into the wall, their glowing eyes wide with terror, and Daniel realized with a sharp chill crawling up his spine, this was no longer about stray dogs. This was about survival. Daniel stood frozen in the empty street, his pulse racing with every second. The strange red light flickered again above the rooftops, sweeping the ground like the eye of a hunter. The low hum followed, steady and heavy, making the glass windows tremble. The two girls pressed themselves against the wall, their thin arms wrapped around each other. They looked so fragile, but their glowing skin and trembling eyes told him they were not like any children he had ever seen. The older one raised her head and stared at him. She didn't speak much English, but he could read the meaning in her eyes. She was begging him to decide. Daniel's chest tightened. His mind was a battlefield. Logic screamed at him to walk away. He was just a simple man in a small town. He couldn't protect anyone from whatever was in the sky. He should leave the food behind and run. He should lock his doors, stay silent, and pretend this night never happened. But his heart didn't listen. He remembered the way the girls had eaten so desperately that it broke him inside. He remembered the younger one's weak cough, the older one's trembling voice when she whispered, "Hide." He had seen fear in strays before, but this was deeper. This was survival fear. Daniel took a deep breath. Slowly, he stepped forward closer to them. "It's okay," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if it was true. "Come with me, quickly." The older girl hesitated. Her glowing eyes flickered toward the sky, then back to him. For a moment, Daniel thought she would refuse. But then she pulled her sister up, wrapping an arm around her, and together they stumbled forward. Daniel led them down the street, his steps fast but careful. The hum grew louder behind them. A red glow touched the pavement just a few feet away. He clenched his jaw and pushed on. They reached his small house at the edge of the street. Daniel unlocked the door with shaking hands and hurried them inside. As soon as the door shut, the hum grew distant again, fading slightly, though it still lingered in the air like a warning. Inside, the dim yellow light flickered. The girls stood in his living room, their silver glow faint but unmistakable. They looked out of place against his old furniture, the worn couch, the cracked table. It was like two stars had fallen into an ordinary man's house. The younger girl leaned against her sister, her small body trembling. Daniel felt a pang in his chest. "Sit," he said softly, pointing to the couch. They obeyed, curling together like frightened animals. For a moment, silence filled the room. Only the faint hum outside reminded him that danger still hovered above. Finally, Daniel spoke. His voice was low, almost cautious. "Who are you?" The older girl looked at him, her lips parting as if the words were too heavy to say. She struggled, forming broken English. "Not from here," she whispered. "Not Earth." The words hit Daniel like a stone. He blinked, trying to process them. His breath caught. He had suspected something strange, but hearing it spoken aloud made his skin crawl. "Aliens," he whispered under his breath. The girl nodded weakly. "Run from hunters. Bad ones." Daniel's hands trembled. His throat felt dry. He wanted to ask 100 questions. Where did you come from? What happened to you? Why are they chasing you? But the fear in her eyes stopped him. She didn't need interrogation. She needed safety. The younger girl coughed again, her glowing veins dimming for a moment. Daniel's heart twisted. These were not invaders. They were not soldiers. They were just children, lost, starving, terrified. And now they were in his house. Daniel sat on the edge of the table, burying his face in his hands. His mind screamed at him. If he helped them, he could die. Whoever or whatever was in the sky clearly wanted them. If they found the girls here, they wouldn't spare him. But if he sent them away, if he opened the door and told them to leave, he could never live with that. He had watched enough strays starve on the streets. He could never watch children, whatever they were, suffer the same fate. His heart made the choice before his mind could argue. He looked up at them. "You can stay here. Just stay quiet. I'll figure something out." The older girl blinked at him, her lips parting in surprise. For the first time, her expression softened. Like a fragile thread of trust had formed between them, she placed a trembling hand over her chest and whispered, "Thank you." Daniel exhaled slowly. His choice was made. There was no going back. But even as relief brushed over him, the outside world reminded him of the danger. The hum returned, louder now. A red glow passed across his curtains, lighting the room in a sickly shade for a brief second. The ship was still searching. Daniel clenched his fists. He had chosen to protect them, but protecting them meant facing something far beyond anything he understood. And in that moment, one question burned hotter than all the rest. How long before the hunters found his house? The curtains glowed red for a moment, then faded back into darkness. Daniel stood very still, his breath shallow, his ears straining. The hum outside was not gone. It was circling, moving slowly above the neighborhood like a predator sniffing for prey. The girls sat curled together on his couch. Their silver glow had dimmed, as if they were trying to make themselves smaller, less noticeable. The older one's eyes stayed fixed on the window. She whispered something in her own language, words sharp and urgent. The younger girl whimpered, pressing her face against her sister's arm. Daniel swallowed. His throat was dry, but he forced himself to speak. "What is that thing out there?" The older girl turned her glowing eyes to him. For a long time she said nothing, as though she was deciding if he deserved the truth. Finally she leaned forward, her voice breaking through the silence. "Hunters," she whispered. "Say, find us." Daniel's stomach knotted. He had heard the word before, but now it carried a new weight. Hunters. He pictured shadows with weapons searching through the sky, looking for 2 starving children. "Why?" he asked, almost afraid of the answer. The girl shook her head slowly. "Weak last ones. If they catch, no more." Her broken words fell heavy in the small room. Daniel felt a chill crawl up his spine. Last ones? Did that mean their entire people were gone? Were these 2 girls truly the last survivors of something greater? Something wiped out? Before he could ask, the hum outside shifted. The sound deepened, vibrating through the walls. A beam of red light cut across the street again, passing dangerously close to his window. The younger girl let out a small cry. Her sister quickly covered her mouth, pulling her close, eyes wide with terror. Then she looked back at Daniel and shook her head violently. "No sound," she mouthed. Daniel nodded, his own body tense with fear. He had never felt so powerless. He was just one man, hiding in a small house with 2 strange children who were not human, and outside something vast and merciless was searching for them. Minutes passed like hours. The hum moved farther away, then closer again, never leaving completely. Daniel kept staring at the curtains, waiting for the moment when the red light would stop, when it would lock onto his house and refuse to move. But it didn't. Not yet. When the sound finally drifted a little farther, the older girl relaxed slightly, though her hands still trembled. She looked at Daniel again, her expression sharp, almost commanding. "Hide us," she said. Daniel blinked. "Where?" "Deep," she whispered. "No light. No noise," Daniel thought quickly. His house was small, but there was a basement. It wasn't much, just a storage space with boxes and old tools, but it was underground, hidden from sight. "Basement," he said. "Come." The girls followed as he moved toward the narrow door beside the kitchen. He opened it carefully, revealing a steep staircase leading into darkness. A musty smell rose from below. Daniel grabbed a flashlight from the shelf and led them down, his steps creaking on the wooden stairs. The basement was cramped, filled with dust and cobwebs. Old boxes lined the walls, stacked high with things Daniel rarely touched. The concrete floor was cold under his shoes. "This will do," he whispered. The girls settled in a corner, curling together again. Daniel set the flashlight down, letting it shine dimly across the room. The younger one tugged at her sister's arm, whispering softly in their strange language. The older girl nodded, then turned back to Daniel. "You, not safe," she said. Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked at him with eyes that seemed far older than her body. "If you help. Hunters come, they kill you too." The words hung heavy in the air. Daniel felt his chest tighten, fear pressing down on him like weight. He could still turn back. He could still push them out, lock the door, pretend none of this was real, but he didn't. He crouched down so he was at eye level with them. His voice was steady, though his heart raced. "You're children. I won't let them hurt you." For the first time, the older girl's expression softened. Her lips trembled and she gave a small nod. She reached out with one thin hand, placing it on his arm. The touch was warm, but not like human warmth. It carried a faint buzz, like energy flowing through her. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. His decision was final now. He was part of this, whether he wanted to be or not. The hum outside rose again, louder than before. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. The girl's glow brightened for a moment, reacting to the sound. Daniel quickly turned off the flashlight, plunging them into darkness. They sat in silence, holding their breath, listening as the sound grew closer. And then came something new. A voice. It wasn't human. It was deep, metallic, layered like several voices speaking at once. It rolled through the air, vibrating against the walls. "We know you are here. Give them to us." Daniel's blood ran cold. The girls clutched each other tighter, their glowing eyes wide in the dark. The hunters had found the neighborhood, and now they were calling for him. The voice rolled through the night like thunder trapped inside metal. "We know you are here. Give them to us." Daniel's blood turned cold. He crouched in the dark basement. The flashlight switched off, the smell of dust thick in the air. His chest rose and fell with sharp breaths, each one sounding too loud in his own ears. The two girls pressed against the corner, their glowing skin dimming as if they were trying to disappear. The younger one buried her face against her sister's arm, shaking violently. The older girl's lips moved soundlessly, whispering words in her own language, prayers, maybe, or desperate pleas. Daniel could not understand, but he understood the meaning. Fear. The humming above the house grew louder. The walls seemed to vibrate. Something massive was circling, lowering. Daniel felt the weight of it pressing down, as though the very air had turned heavy. A new sound cut through the night. Slow, deliberate footsteps on the road outside. Not human. Each step was too heavy, too measured, echoing unnaturally. Daniel clenched his jaw. They weren't just searching from the sky. They had come down. The basement suddenly felt smaller, like a box waiting to be opened. Daniel gripped the edge of a wooden crate, his knuckles white. His heart screamed at him, "What are you doing? You can't fight this. You're just one man." But when he looked at the girls, fragile, trembling, clutching each other, something inside him hardened. He couldn't give them up, not after seeing their desperation, their hunger, their fear. They were children, no matter what world they came from. Outside, the metallic voice called again, closer this time. "Surrender them. We see your house." Daniel's stomach knotted. They knew. Somehow they knew exactly where to look. The floorboards above creaked. A shadow moved across the thin line of light under the basement door. Daniel's breath caught. They were here. The older girl clutched his sleeve suddenly, her glowing eyes burning in the dark. "No fight," she whispered. "If fight, you die." Daniel stared at her. He wanted to believe she was wrong. He wanted to think he could grab a knife from the kitchen or a bat from the basement and somehow protect them. But her eyes held a truth he couldn't deny. He couldn't win. Not against hunters who crossed the stars, but maybe he could hide them. He moved quickly, pulling aside boxes stacked in the corner. Dust rose, making him cough. Behind the crates was a narrow crawl space, barely big enough for the girls to squeeze inside. He shoved the last box aside and pointed. "In here," he whispered. "Both of you. Stay quiet." The older girl hesitated, fear flashing in her eyes, but she understood. She pulled her sister close and guided her into the narrow space. Their small bodies pressed together, their glow dimming almost completely until they looked like faint shadows. Daniel slid the boxes back in place, leaving just enough of a gap so they could breathe. Then he turned, wiping sweat from his forehead. The floor above groaned again. Heavy footsteps moved across his living room. Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears. He could almost picture them. Tall, shadowed figures with glowing eyes and weapons that did not belong to Earth. The basement door rattled. Daniel's heart leapt. He stepped back, pressing against the wall, his breath caught in his throat. The handle turned. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open, a thin line of red light spilling down the stairs. The hum deepened, vibrating through the air like a living thing. Daniel's mind screamed at him to run, but his body refused to move. He stood frozen, staring at the open doorway. A shape appeared at the top of the stairs, tall, broad, wrong. Its body shimmered like metal and flesh mixed together, moving with unnatural precision, its head tilted, scanning the dark below. Daniel gripped a rusted wrench from the workbench, holding it tightly, though he knew it was useless. His hands shook, sweat dripping down his temple. The figure stepped onto the first stair. The wood creaked under its weight. Daniel forced himself to breathe quietly, each inhale shallow, controlled. He glanced at the corner where the boxes hid the girls. If the figure searched carefully, it would find them. And then it would all be over. The figure paused halfway down, its head tilted again as if listening. The red glow from its visor swept across the room, landing on the crates, the shelves, the dust-covered floor. Daniel pressed himself deeper into the shadows, clutching the wrench so hard his knuckles ached. The hum outside grew sharper, like a warning. The figure froze, then turned its head toward the sound. A burst of static filled the air, alien and broken. Then slowly it climbed back up the stairs. The door creaked shut. Daniel's chest heaved as he finally let out the breath he had been holding. His body trembled from head to toe. Minutes passed. The hum faded, drifting farther away. Silence crept back into the basement, heavy and suffocating. Carefully, Daniel moved the boxes aside. The two girls crawled out, their glowing eyes wide with fear and relief. The younger one clung to him suddenly, wrapping thin arms around his waist. Daniel froze, then slowly placed a hand on her trembling back. The older girl looked at him, her voice trembling but clear. "They not stop," she whispered. "They come back." Daniel swallowed hard. He knew she was right. Tonight had only been the beginning. The hunters had seen his house. They would return, and when they did, his choice would matter more than ever. The basement felt colder after the intruder left. Dust floated in the beam of Daniel's flashlight, and every creak of the old house above sounded like danger waiting to return. He leaned against the wall, his body trembling from the fear he had forced down only minutes ago. The younger girl clung to him, her thin arms wrapped around his waist, her small body still shaking. Daniel gently placed a hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her, though his own hands were unsteady. The older girl watched him with wide, glowing eyes, her face pale but steady. "They will come back," she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. He already knew. The way that figure had scanned the basement, the way the red light had lingered on his house, it wasn't over. If anything, this was only the beginning. He crouched down, looking at them closely. His voice was low but urgent. "You need to tell me the truth. Who are you? Why are they hunting you?" The older girl's eyes flickered. For a long moment she stayed silent, as if the truth itself was too heavy to carry. The younger one coughed weakly, leaning against her sister. That seemed to push the older girl forward. She took a shaky breath. Not from here," she said slowly, her English broken but sharp. "From far, very far," Daniel nodded. He had guessed as much, but he stayed quiet, letting her speak. Our world," she continued, her voice trembling. "Hunters come, kill many, burn sky, break ground. We, children only. No soldiers, no weapons. We run." Her words were fragments, but they painted a picture Daniel didn't want to see. A destroyed planet. Fire in the skies, people hunted down until none remained. "We crash here," she whispered, pointing weakly upward. "Ship broken, we hide. No food, only..." Wait, Daniel's stomach twisted. That explained their hunger, their desperation. They weren't invaders. They weren't here to conquer. They were survivors, stranded, starving. The older girl lowered her gaze. "We last," she said softly. "Last ones of family. If hunters find..." "No more." Her voice cracked on the last words. Daniel felt his chest tighten. He wasn't looking at monsters. He was looking at the last two children of a people erased from the universe. The younger girl reached out suddenly, placing her glowing hand on his wrist. Her touch was warm but faint, like she was fading. She whispered a single word in her own language, soft and musical, before coughing again. Daniel looked at the older sister for translation. "She say, 'Thank you,'" the girl said quietly. Daniel's throat tightened. He rubbed his face with both hands, trying to process the weight of this. He was just one man, a nobody in a quiet town, but now he was standing between the last survivors of an alien race and their hunters. He looked at them again. "Why me?" he asked softly. "Why come to me?" The older girl's glowing eyes held his. "Because you feed hungry." The words hit him like a blow. She had seen him night after night leaving food for stray dogs. That one act of kindness had told her something no words could. He would not turn them away. Daniel sat back heavily, the wrench still clutched in his hand, though he had forgotten about it. His mind swirled with questions, but one thought rose above them all. If what she said was true, then the hunters would never stop. They had destroyed her people, burned her world. They wouldn't let two survivors slip away. A low rumble in the distance reminded him of that truth. The hunters were still nearby, searching, waiting. Daniel forced himself to speak. "If they come back, and they will, how do we stop them? How do I protect you?" The girl shook her head slowly. You cannot stop. Only hide. Only run, her words chilled him. She wasn't lying. If entire armies had failed to protect them, what chance did one man in a small house have? But Daniel also knew something she didn't. Humans were stubborn. They didn't always win, but they refused to give up. And he wasn't going to hand them over. He looked at the crawl space again, then at the girls. We'll find a way, he said firmly, though he didn't know how. The older girl studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod. Something softened in her eyes. Trust. But before Daniel could feel relief, the hum outside deepened again. The red glow returned, sweeping across the street. Dust fell from the ceiling as the house vibrated. The younger girl whimpered, and the older one grabbed Daniel's arm tightly. Her voice was sharp with fear. They come, she whispered. Daniel's stomach dropped. He could already hear the footsteps again, slow and deliberate, moving closer. This time, he knew they wouldn't just search. This time, the hunters would enter his house, and Daniel had no idea if he was ready. The hum grew heavier, vibrating through the floorboards like thunder rolling just above the house. Red light bled through the cracks in the curtains upstairs, washing the walls with a sickly glow. Daniel's hands trembled as he stood in the basement, listening to the hunters surround his home. The two girls huddled in the corner, their faint silver glow dimmer than ever. The younger one whimpered softly, her chest rising and falling too quickly. The older one held her close, whispering in their strange language, trying to calm her even as her own hands shook. Daniel clenched his jaw. He wanted to believe this was just another nightmare, but the metallic voice outside cut through any doubt. We know you have them. Human. Give them to us, and we will spare you. The words pressed down like iron. Daniel's pulse raced. They knew exactly where he was. The older girl looked at him, her glowing eyes wide and desperate. Please, she whispered. Do not open. Daniel's mind was a storm. Logic screamed at him. He was one man, no weapons, no plan. The hunters weren't bluffing. If they entered, they could tear this house apart in minutes. He could survive if he gave the girls up. They had even promised to spare him, but his heart refused. He thought of their hunger when they first ate his food. He thought of their trembling voices, their whispered thank you. He thought of the stray dogs, the creatures everyone ignored, and how he had chosen to feed them anyway. He knew the truth now. These girls were no different. They were alone, unwanted, and hunted, and he was the only one standing between them and extinction. His choice was already made. He crouched in front of them, lowering his voice to a whisper. Listen to me. You stay hidden. No matter what happens, don't make a sound. The older girl shook her head fiercely. They kill you. Daniel forced a small smile. Maybe, but I won't let them take you. The younger girl tugged at his sleeve, her glowing eyes filling with tears. She whispered something in her language. Words Daniel couldn't understand but felt in his chest. The older one translated, her voice trembling. She say, You are brave. Daniel's throat tightened. He nodded once, gripping the rusted wrench in his hand. It was nothing against their machines, but it was all he had. The basement door rattled. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The metallic voice came again, louder. Last chance, human. Give them to us. Daniel stood straighter, every muscle tense. His voice cracked the silence, steady but sharp. They're not yours. The words echoed through the house. For a moment, silence followed. Then came the crash. The front door upstairs exploded inward with a sound like metal tearing. Heavy footsteps pounded across the floor, shaking the house with each step. Furniture scraped and splintered. Glass shattered. The hunters had entered. Daniel's chest heaved, but he stood his ground, eyes locked on the basement door. The wrench felt cold in his hand, sweat slicking the handle. The door burst open. Red light flooded down the stairs. One of the hunters appeared, tall and twisted, its body gleaming like steel wrapped in shadows. Its visor glowed crimson, sweeping the basement as it stepped inside. Daniel raised the wrench, his voice hoarse but defiant. You'll have to go through me. The hunter tilted its head, almost mocking him. Its voice was layered, mechanical, and cruel. So be it, it stepped closer. Daniel's legs shook, but he didn't back down. His heart thundered, every beat screaming at him to run, but his will held him in place. Behind the boxes, the girls clung to each other, watching with wide, glowing eyes. Their silver veins pulsed brighter, reacting to the danger. Daniel saw it out of the corner of his eye. the faint shimmer of light spreading across their skin stronger than before. The hunter raised a clawed hand. Red light built in its palm, humming with deadly energy. Daniel gritted his teeth. This was it. But before the strike came, the older girl cried out. Not in fear, but in defiance. Her voice rang through the basement in her alien tongue, sharp and powerful. The hunter froze. The red light flickered in its hand. Daniel blinked, stunned, as the girl's glow brightened, filling the dark with silver light. The younger one joined her, their voices weaving together, fragile but strong. The hunter stumbled back a step, its visor flickering. The hum in the air faltered. For the first time, Daniel saw it hesitate. He realized then, the girls weren't powerless. They had something the hunters feared. Daniel's grip on the wrench tightened. Hope sparked in his chest. Maybe he wasn't as helpless as he thought. Maybe this fight wasn't just his. The hunters outside roared, their metallic voices shaking the walls. The battle for survival had only just begun. And Daniel knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would never give them up.